Hi, Keith.
Great to chat with you. Um, so what I'm gonna do um, is I'm gonna do a really quick the really quick intro, and then I'm gonna do the intro and give you a chance to like describe who you are. So I'm coming. The really quick version is um, I'm coming to the world from the Pacific Northwest, from Washington State. Mount Rainier is just over that ridge right over there. Um, and of part of when I was laying out these nine interviews, who do I want to interview for these nine different business models? There were a couple of the business models where it was like, I know this person, I know that person, they're both in that space, they're probably appropriate for this topic. um on the other hand, there were a couple of specific business models where I knew immediately who I wanted to get if that person was available. And so the last session was Patrick Almond talking about the business coaching side. Um, and I was like, "Hey, would you be willing to do this interview with me?" And he said yes. And so I put him on the table on the agenda for just before Labor Day. Um, and in Mike's case, in the case of the support model, one of the things I didn't want to do with this business model specifically is I didn't want the big names, and I'm going to just put the big names on the table because we're going to at some point you and I are just going to we're going to use them
Are
anyway.
you?
So
What? I'm crushed. You're saying I'm not one of the big names. No,
okay,
I'm kidding.
okay, but more importantly, I don't know if you've worked for both of them, but you I consider you the major player.
Just behind the
So,
scenes. In fact, it's been kind of an interesting journey where I some people think I'm really, really, really well known because they see me everywhere and they see all
mhm,
my stuff. And then there's other people who've never heard of me at
mhm,
all.
right.
And I think a big reason for that is that I'm a, I'm kind of like a practitioner. I'm more of an
Hmm.
engineering type person. So it's
Hmm.
like, I'm going to attract all the other people who are also doing like the work of
Hmm.
managing snapshots and that. Whereas maybe more maybe
The
more other
agency
people who
side.
aren't right. It's like, yeah. So it's been my big change. What's really shifted in the last, maybe 6 months, I'd say,
Hmm.
is I really real taking seriously like my public image and going like,
Hmm.
hey, I shouldn't just be talking to the other nerdy, documentation dudes and that, which was
Hmm.
great for learning about because,
Hmm.
the other experts in the field. But I've been really trying to saying, well, how does this actually impact other people? Because if you're a
Hmm.
virtual assistant, a freelancer, like things like documenting, that's got to actually it has to hit your bank account. It has to make it so that you can charge more than everyone else who's doing the same thing that you're doing. And
Hmm.
that's been a big shift for me. And in agencies, especially with AI and there's new features all the time, people are starting to look at, well, I launched my agency a year, 2 years ago and I haven't added anything to it. But
Hmm.
anyone who's starting an agency now, they have all the new features they've learned from the past. They're getting all these they're a lot more nimble and agile. And so I have to say to agencies, well, hey, do you actually want to still create more value for your clients? Do you want to have new things to sell, new things to get your clients engaged? And so I've really shifted from just being all about documentation and back end processes and saying, well, what actually creates the change that makes people able to charge more and do more for their agency? So
What creates
it's
value?
what creates exactly, dude,
Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm. So, yeah, that was actually a really good intro, and I got a spam notification, so I'm flagging that while I have the screen up. But what I was doing is um I'm getting my screens so that at least if somebody chats in, um I will see the notification and I can ask you the question if that question is relevant. Um
Wonderful.
And okay, so I think I can see it. So audience, if you're watching live, say live. Um, yeah, come on. Oh, maybe not. If you're watching live, say live. If you're watching on the replay, say replay. We're just doing that for the algorithm things, but it's also a chance for me to test whether or not I can see comments.
There's also
Um,
a bit of a delay too sometimes.
yes,
So
yes, there is that, of course. Okay, there we go. I got your comment live, so that's a good thing. We're starting out good. Okay. All right. So, and that's in the Facebook group. So as opposed to on my personal page. So at least somebody who's already in my Facebook friends circle can see. So we're off to a good start. All right. Um, thank you for giving us the context of where you where you are in your journey, and we're going to dig for the next 20 or 50 minutes or so into that journey a little bit. Um, and what I was saying, and so when I was saying who I wanted to have on here, um, there's the HL Pro Tools and Extendly, who are the third party service providers in this space. Um, and I wanted to make sure that when I was having an interview with somebody, I was talking with somebody um, who's working directly with the smaller people, who isn't in competition with, there we go, that's the way to say it, who isn't in competition with the other service providers, right? So even the people in the middle of the pack, and I'm going to name Agency Armory or Taft Systems, um,
growthable.
there you go, Growthable. The people in that category, um, they're still, that's their primary business, is the business model eight, what I call business model eight, the service provider, the support agency. Um,
And they also very more specifically, they're more white labeling and doing like the building, like they're like giving teams of VAs
mhm,
or in that. Whereas what I'm doing is I'm supporting agencies, but I'm supporting more in building their teams and building
mhm,
their systems
mhm.
um, because I'm only one person and I'm not very scalable.
Yeah,
At least not yet anyway.
yeah.
But so yeah, I'd like to, that's kind of interesting. I hopefully I do bring a little bit more of a broader look because to me, a lot of people ask, well, do you work with this industry? Do you work with this type of
Mhm,
business? And
mhm,
to me, it's like, no, because the process of creating value in high level is always the same.
mhm,
It's you have to have a plan for what you're trying to do. You
mhm,
have to know what that value is. You have to build it in a scalable way so
mhm,
that you can launch features and fix those features and improve them.
mhm,
And then you have to have a way of managing it
mhm,
and a way of those teams working together. And
mhm,
it doesn't matter if you're outsourcing, you're doing internal teams, if you're small, big, that process stays the same no matter
mhm,
what. And
mhm,
I don't think lot of people, most agencies are either they have their own particular way that they do it that only works kind of their way, or they're a company that doesn't want to actually figure that part out. They want to do their little piece and that the agency figures the rest out. Whereas I've got the
mhm.
the audacious goal of trying to see how do all these pieces actually fit together.
Yeah. And that I didn't have a word for it, but that audacious goal is why when I knew I wanted to talk to somebody about what I call business model eight, that Micheal is who I wanted to talk to. Um, because you're not talking, you're not, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. So if you are in fact trying to hire people, then I'm not trying to say you're not trying to hire people, but
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not trying to be, yeah,
you're not
I'm
actively
not
recruiting
recruiting.
people to work in your agency. Similar to me, as bulk and marketing, as this brand, there we go. As this brand, I'm not trying to um grow my agency. The point of GHL Business Launch is to help other agencies become who they want to be or who they should be. And so that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to do a really quick intro to GHL Business Launch. Then I'm going to give you a little bit more chance to tell us about your journey. And then I'm going to describe um, the 9 business models and where business model 8 fits in the framework. And mostly that's for context for people who are, this happens to be the first time they've ever interacted with one of these trainings from me. Um, and then I'm going to ask you some more details about that experience, if that's okay. Okay, so GHL Business Launch, the compressed version is, and the way I described it with Patrick last week was or 2 weeks ago was the way I want to do it. So if your agency is already making 10K a month or your local equivalent or more, you have some basic systems and process in place, systems and processes in place, and you just need Mike to help you like sort out the details of making that scalable. GHL Business Launch can't help you, but Michael can. GHL Business Launch is about the solopreneur, the freelancer, the startup, the hobby business, side hustler who's trying to get from zero to having an income from this hobby business. In the US economy, we talk about it 0 to 3K is as hard as 3K to 10K on a recurring basis, monthly basis, or whatever your local equivalent of that is. What ends up getting people stuck often in the 3K to 10K is they've done a few things that have started getting them traction, and they think because they're doing all of them that they must continue to do all of them, and they are not all scalable. And this is why we're talking with Mike today. Figuring out which of those are really your specialty and saying, I'm going to divest myself of the things that aren't, or I'm going to keep that one client. I'm in love with that client. So what I'm doing with that client, I'm going to continue to do, but I'm not looking for any more clients like that because that's not scalable. This is scalable, and I'm going to work on this. That's when it's going to get me past that 10K threshold. We call that the illusion of permanence or the sunk cost fallacy. Just because I am doing something doesn't mean I have to continue doing that something. The thing
Yeah,
that
I see this. Oh,
go
keep
ahead.
going.
Yeah. No, you can.
I was going to say that's something I'm super passionate about is scalable versus growth. And I think you need to start off with an understanding of what you're trying to do. And when you're in this beginning of your high level journey, you're growing things. When we say we're growing, it means growth means getting bigger. It means we're getting more clients, we're getting more work to do, we're getting more employees, we're getting more systems, right? Hopefully, we're getting more money, we're growing our revenue as well. But when we're talking about scale, and everybody says the word scale, nobody knows really what it means, or they know in theory, but in practice, they equate growth with scale. What scale means is we're taking what we already have and we're optimizing it in a way so that we can handle more without growing as much. You're never going to stop growing at some point, but what we mean by scale is we're taking the same team members and we're working in a way that whereas before we could handle 10, now we can handle 100 people. And what you just said is 100% it. You start off growing and you're building the habits, those things of just, get the work done, figure it out, make mistakes. And that's cool for growing. But if you're scaling, those habits that get you started are the exact same habits that work against you, that prevent you from getting to that next level and scaling. Because scaling takes not just launching and hoping it works. Scaling takes, we need to take our time, make sure that we launch this right. Because in 6 months, we don't want to have to figure out that we should have done something 6 months ago. And now we have to start over with all of our clients and reboot them and take 300 hours to go and rebuild everything from scratch again. Yeah. That is the problem that people run into, as you've identified, is the thing that got them to where they are, they think is going to get them to the next, and it's actually not.
It actually becomes a roadblock.
Yes.
And then what gets people stuck in the first threshold is the shiny object syndrome of you're just trying to do anything that'll bring in revenue. And so you're bouncing from thing to thing into thing, and you don't have any consistent processes at all.
Well, it's not just consistent processes. it's you're you're thinking about the revenue you're bringing in, and you're not thinking about the workload that you're bringing in to service it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like the first time you have a customer, the amount of effort it takes to get them is astronomical. But if you keep doing that, your revenue is growing, but your costs are growing faster than your revenue.
Yeah.
And which is fine because usually you could kind of balance it with just new stuff. But when you run out of time, when you run out of focus, when
Mm-hmm.
you run out of headspace to be able to manage everything,
Mm-hmm.
that's when reality hits and you're like, you're already working 60, 70 hours,
Mm-hmm.
but your cost, the problem is that it's actually worse than having almost no clients because now you have 60 hours of work that you're responsible for. And if you just stop doing that, you're going to piss people off.
Mm-hmm.
So what a lot of people is, yes, you do have to get started quickly, but make sure that you're not, speedily going towards a brick wall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Beautiful. Exactly. So, um, I think that's a really good setting the conditions for um I'm going to talk about online business models. I'm going to do kind of an overview really quickly and always in relation to how they apply to business model A. So the agencies, and there's a reason I have four different categories of business model three is software as a service, SaaS. Business model four is SWAS, software with a service. The fractional CMO, outsourced marketing department, business model five, the marketing partnership, and then the traditional marketing agency, what I call business model six. Those are a spectrum of the kinds of services you're providing to the client. SaaS is much more of a productized service. Agency, business model six, is much more of a bespoke, creative kind of content generation. That's a spectrum, and all of those are where the marketing agencies are. And business model eight, what business model eight offers to those kinds of agencies is technical support, often white labeled, so it appears to the client as if it's part of the agency that they've already hired, but allows the agency to offload some of the technical support issues where they can focus, especially if they're the classic creative agency, business model six, they can focus on their creative stuff and have somebody that's in the business model eight tech support do their behind the scenes high level stuff. And in Mike's world, build out a snapshot that's customized, that's scalable, right? Um, Business model one and two, and there's a reason I separate two different levels or types of affiliate, but for today's purposes, they're just the business model one and two are the affiliates. And agencies who are affiliates aren't actually providing services to their customers. They don't have clients. They have people that they sponsored who are now high levels clients. But sometimes you know enough about the client to know that they need more help. And if you're not going to provide them tech support, you could introduce them to a third party business model A person and say, oh, by the way, I get help from so and so. You might want to contact them when high level can't help you figure out how to do your marketing. High levels support only exists to help you implement high level. It
See,
doesn't. Go
this
ahead.
is actually, if you don't mind me jumping in,
Yeah.
this is actually part of one of the big problems with HighLevel is that there's a lot of people out there that are trying to that will be able to help you, right?
Hmm.
As you just said, there's 9 different ones, and that's a lot to try and keep in your head. The challenge is that you don't really know one what those 9 things are. You also don't know what you're going to need until much later, right? And you're
Hmm.
trying to, and also a lot of people, the people who are providing these services are also not going to try and solve all of your problems. They're going to do what they do really well.
Hmm.
And I feel there's a gap in agencies have to make some strong decisions of what their value they create.
Hmm.
And you can't do it by going to individual people, right? You can't just talk to me or you or a VA, an high level expert coach. You can't just go to one person almost and get that whole thing. You have to really know what value you want to create in high level,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't, you're going to get swallowed up. There's 1,000 different things you can do. There's a
Mm-hmm.
thousand ways people can help you,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to have that control. And a lot of times what we think is creating the value is the new tool or hiring. Hey, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to have to deal with the tech, so I'm going to hire someone. It's not going to solve the problem because we need to define what problem we're solving.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's as simple as using the CRM. We
Mm-hmm.
could give the clients a cool CRM,
Mm-hmm.
but are they going to use it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't answered those questions yet, you can very get lost trying to get people to build you all these cool CRM features.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes time to the client using it, it's all for nothing because no one knows how to
Because
use
they
it,
don't
right?
actually use it, right? Um, exactly. And so that's, in fact, I commented that exact thing in the affiliate community group today. Someone asked something about, well, what's the quickest win for the affiliate model? And my response was, the issue is if you just get people to sign up for a subscription to HighLevel, you might get some cash coming in, but your risk is that the potential for churn if you've handed them this tool, this amazing tool shed of capability, and they never adopt it. Why should they keep paying for something that if they never use it? So
And then you lose trust, right?
yeah.
Because you can only give away trust once. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who got by there's a lot of people. You have to always look at incentives and accountability. And the thing with affiliates, which nothing wrong with affiliating,
Mm-hmm.
but if you are making promises that are not going to be easy to keep, and you washing your hands of it, you're going to run it. There's a lot of people that sold people on HighLevel that it's this amazing money printing tree, and yeah, you'll get this onboarding and it'll be great, and there'll be people there to help you out, and you just got it. And then 6 months later, 18 months later, they still haven't launched.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, a lot of people think, because I help people with very basic stuff a lot of time, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people think my ideal client is, the beginners. It's the beginners are just the people who would benefit most from what I can do
Mm-hmm.
because I could set them up in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
However, the main people that do end up hiring me are people who have gone through and made those mistakes and realized, wait, we can't just launch to 10 clients and then get another 10 clients, because after we got those first 10, we get stuck. And
Mm-hmm.
now we have to start over. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think there
That
needs to be in
yeah.
marketing in general more accountability.
Yeah. But the reason, and because, so we're kind of jumping ahead, but because you just said that, instead of putting a pin in it and coming back to it, Mike, I want to stay Q on it. Um, is the people who know they need your help are the people who started on this journey that I described in dollar figures, and they hit that wall. And then they said, okay, now I have to go talk to a Michael, whether it's Mike or whether it's somebody else that has his skill set. I'm not sure there's anyone, but besides, for the purpose of the discussion, they realize at that point they have to. And it almost is the dollar figure almost isn't even relevant anymore. Where the person who's still in this, when they're 0 to 3K, that's an interesting conversation to have with you, but they might not be ready for what you're teaching. By the time they're in the 3K or maybe the 2K to 4K window, that's the person you can help the most, because that's the person who is going to, if they start implementing your processes now, it's going to save them so much pain later.
If they want. So a lot of people get it over, because I talk a lot about documentation and
Mm-hmm.
and having building teams and things like that. A lot of people though think that that's kind of the gold standard and everyone should. They shouldn't, because Scaling is when you take something that works and has been proven, and now you want to scale that thing that we know works, and we're going to invest a lot of time and money to make that go big. But if you're just getting started, you have to start with something that actually works. And I'll show you something a little. This is part of like the free training that I give, and it's going to be in the HighLevel University. I'm going to be teaching this to absolutely everyone, but this is something whether you're an affiliate, you're just getting started, or even if you're running 500 or 1,000 accounts, this is what you should always start with in HighLevel. And I wasn't planning on this, but you just brought up this point here. So I'm just going to share if I have permissions.
I think you do.
We're going to find out real quick.
We're going to know in a minute.
Yeah. So for context for you guys, this is if you're a freelancer, if you do this with an agency, you are going to make twice as much money with that agency than if you don't do this step. If you're an agency,
don't share screen yet. Don't share screen yet. Okay. I'm finished the thought. If you do this, you're going to make twice as much money as if you don't. Is that the complete thought?
Somewhat. And then if you're an agency, you're going to be able to grow twice as fast and twice as far than if you don't do this. And this is about making an actual, taking 30 minutes to an hour to actually figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And this is something that all 9 of those business models need to be doing. Mm-hmm. And everyone skips it because they assume that the business owner's already done this. But what in the HighLevel space, we have to assume that the business owner, the agency, has done almost nothing. Right? Otherwise, you get into trouble when you assume that they've already done this kind of work.
In fact, one of the lessons that in project management, so I do have a certificate in Lean Six Sigma. One of the first lessons, because I think I'm 90% certain I know where you're going. Defining the problem is almost always the most important part of the problem-solving process.
What is it? The Einstein quote there? It's probably not Einstein, but it gets attributed to him. If I had an hour left to live to save the world, I'd spend, like 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute implementing it.
So Interpret Singh just asked this question in chat. So this is perfect. He said, and what I was getting ready to say to him was, we're going to get to that topic, but in fact, you jumped to it, and so we're digging in, and we may never get back to my agenda questions, and that's okay.
I can answer that. I can answer that question. Super simple though.
So this is and what I want to make sure that this is the exact answer to the question. How do we ask for more money? Or this is the exact question he's asking. How can we ask for more money when we increase AOV? AOV, I'm not sure what that is, or profit level increased above the decided rate. And no, it's not
there's no decided rate in Derpreet. How do you ask for more money? You provide more value. If every single VA or freelancer out there is coming to an agency and saying, I will do some work for you, I'll build workflows for you, I'll onboard your clients for you. Cool. What happens if the agency has a bad snapshot? If they have bad ideas they don't know how to plan a snapshot, so they ask you to build things that don't really work. Well, you're going to build things that don't really work really well, and then they're going to blame you, and you're just another hourly worker. What if you come to the agency and you ask a couple questions saying, well, what are we trying to build? Well, how about let's work on it. Let's actually get this out so make sure that I understand it. So I'm going to share with you guys. This is what I do. I've been doing this for like 10, 15 years, and it doesn't matter what software you use. What you want to have is you want to have some visual representation of the client journey. So what we're going to have is on the left, we're going to have lead comes in, and at the right, we're going to have purchase is made. What you're going to do is you're going to go through this exercise with the client, with your team, if it's an internal thing. And what you want to do is you want to be able to map out what is the client journey from the time they come in. Lead comes in. Well, how did they come in? Did they come in through Facebook? Did they come in through Google? Are they coming in off the street and a receptionist? let's define what that is. Let's say it's a Facebook ad. Cool. Where are they coming? What's happening next? Oh, well, they're going into a funnel page or an opt-in page for a lead magnet. And what's on that funnel page? Okay, well, there's that. There's obviously the opt-in form. Is there anything else on that page that takes them anywhere? Is there any other? Oh, yeah, there's an upsell. So once they go into the opt-in form, we send them to an upsell page. Okay, cool. But what are we trying to sell them to? I'm going through this quick, by the way, just so
For
that we get it
purposes.
for demonstration purposes, right? And you're going to go through that whole process of, hey, maybe we'll throw in a calendar as well, too, right? We're going to have a calendar. And you want to be able to each stage going, well, what do they have to do the next spot? What else happens here? Where else can it go wrong? Are there any other things that happen? In a calendar, they could say yes, they could say no, they could say maybe later, right? There's all these things. And what you need to do is once you have this, one, if there's any problems in the logic, like let's say someone also says, oh, there's this webinar over here. Oh, okay. Hey, this is starting to get kind of big. When did you want to launch again? Oh, next week.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a lot of different things to manage. If you had having this map allows you to set in stone the scope of what you're trying to do. Now, imagine in Dirtbreed, you did this with an agency beforehand, right? What value have you just provided that every other VA that says, I will do what you tell me, sir, says? You have just helped the business. You don't even have to come up with anything. That's great about this map. You literally don't have to be an expert in anything. You just have to ask questions so that you understand and you map out what you understand so the agency owner can say, yes, that is exactly what I want to have built, right? You have now, nobody has ever asked them to write things out. Entrepreneurs, they're just ideas. They've never written things down. Just by getting them written down, they're probably going to come up with 1,000 ideas and better understanding of what they're trying to do. And you helped them do that. How successful is that project going to be? Way more successful. And what does success mean? It means money. Yeah. So
can I jump in really quick? Part of how you now get to charge more money is simply by saying we're no longer talking about a 2 or 3 hour 1 day task. We now understand the scope of the project. Well, clearly this scoped project is a much bigger thing than a 1 day task. When you start doing consulting projects instead of trading hours for dollars and doing tasks for people, now you're providing them more value.
And if you're an affiliate, it's the same thing. Like we're talking, why does everybody hate on the affiliates? Because affiliates go and they promise people a bunch of stuff and they say, yeah, it'll work. Come on in, try it out. But they don't often care. Now, imagine you're affiliate where you only affiliated for people where you helped them understand what they're trying to do. And then you said, you know what? HighLevel is going to be awesome for this. Hey, what you're trying to do here, maybe a simpler app would be better. Maybe you don't want to get, if you're saying, hey, all this big stuff, well, how are you going to manage all that? Oh, well, I'll hire a bunch of people. Oh, that's a lot of people to hire. Like, how much are you willing to spend on? Oh, a lot. What are you going to be okay if you don't make money for the next 6 to 12 months? Oh, no. Maybe you're not ready for HighLevel yet, because HighLevel, yeah, there are some easy ways of making money in it, but a lot of people don't, right? And a lot of people burn out. So it wouldn't take that long. So this process of understanding the problem, it can help anyone, whether you're an agency, an affiliate, a coach, freelancer, or even an employee. You can do this work. Getting clarity on what you're trying to do is one of the number one value creation things you can do in a business world where nobody's really sure what they want or how to get there. And
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yes. All right. So let's I want to talk about the business model 7 and business model 9 really quick, and then and then we'll jump back to where we were. So I talked about the four agency models and affiliate and how the agencies models get help from a business model 8 entity. And sometimes that when I say an entity, sometimes that's an Extendly or an HL Pro tool, sometimes it's a smaller agency, and sometimes it's the VA freelancer kind of person that we're talking about. Um, um, that same agency entity would also help someone who has signed up through an affiliate and who now has their own high-level agency, high-level account for their own business and needs some help implementing it. There's a really interesting corollary or parallel between the business model 7 coach, advisor, consultant, and the business model 8. The product for the business model 7 is strategy. So a lot of what Micheal is talking about is defining the strategy, defining the plan, what we're trying to build to solve the problem. And in the 9 business model framework, that's a product of business model 7. And some people can actually make a business out of providing advice. Consulting is what we call it. And others give that part away for free in exchange for doing the work as a agency, as a business model agency, support agency. The point is there's a symbiotic relationship between those two where, and again, this may be part of the answer to the question about how do you charge more money. Well, if you're giving away your consulting in order to get paid to do the build, maybe you need to stop giving away the consulting part. Maybe you need to start monetizing the consulting.
Well, if you're not charging for it, and if your goal is to just be doing building, I would put to you that you're probably a hammer looking for a nail, and you're not actually consulting.
Mm-hmm.
To be consulting, you have to put aside the what you think the answer is. You can't be solution focused and consult at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not it. So a lot of times what happens is if you get focused on that, and if you don't have any way of understanding and the problem, you're either not consulting correctly, or number 2, you're relying on the agency to have done other stuff, and you're just trying to find out what are the projects I need to do, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is a way to do that as a freelancer without having to be a consultant. And it's if you come in to an existing project, this is something that every single freelancer should be doing, which is you should do a paid documentation of their snapshot, because you cannot do work on something that you don't know if it works or not. And you can't quote something unless you know how much work time it's going to take. And one of the hardest things is coming in as a freelancer is waiting for the agency to figure it out. And most agencies don't have it all figured out. Otherwise, they would have hired employees and they would have had a team. They'd have it all ducks in a row. They wouldn't need you. So what you should do is, and I've seen some people make a lot of extra money than what they were making for before, is you come in and you go and you document through the snapshot and you write down how everything works and how to set it up and any issues or opportunities for improvements that you see. You do that. It'll take you a day or two, faster if you're a smaller one. And now what you can go to the agency is you can say, hey, look, here is the documentation of how your snapshot works, because if you don't have any documentation, the agency owner probably doesn't know how the snapshot works. And the person who was there before you knew, but they're no longer here. So nobody knows how it works. So 1, you've already given them value. 2, you now have a list of things that you could show them, like, hey, here's a list of things that I can do to make things better.
The things that need to be fixed.
Do you want them done? Yes or no? and they're going to say yes if you presented them right. And the
Mm-hmm.
ones that aren't priority, you can say, no, that's cool. We got more than enough work to do.
Mm-hmm.
That is a better way of doing things, because if you rely on the agency,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be taking on whatever dysfunction they have.
Yeah.
Because if they're kind of just, you know, just randomly swaying, today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm doing that, you're going to start doing that as well, and you're no longer helping the agency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is the defining the scope of the problem. And when you can show the person you're offering to do work for, when you can show them all of the problems that you are going to solve, they start seeing the cost of not solving the problem, and they see that you have brought the the skill set to solve that problem for them, so they no longer have that cost. But if they don't know how, if they if they if they are if they have, and because I'm talking to Michael, I'm going to use the word snapshot. If they have a snapshot that is actually six different pieces and parts that they've snapshotted in, six different snapshots that they pulled in together over time, and they've cobbled them together, and now they're using this as their base agency snapshot, and it doesn't not work, but they're not quite sure how it works. And you now come in and say, I can show you where you've got overlapping things that are just doing double work. I can show you where the things that should be happening that aren't happening. I can show you where the workflow that in one snapshot it tied to another workflow just the way it should, but now that you've got this other two snapshots in, it doesn't tie together correctly. You have just shown a huge solution to a problem that the owner has been burying in the back of their mind. They don't not know, they know the problem's there. They just have
Mhm.
chosen to bury it under a rug because they don't want to deal with it.
And to be fair, let's put in a good faith side. It sometimes is that. Sometimes, though, it's nobody's told anybody how to communicate this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like trying to learn French or English or any other language. If nobody's told you how to actually what the words mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a hard time learning the language. In the same
Mm-hmm.
way, there's not a lot of people talking about, well, how do we as a high level team communicate with one another?
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody's actually showing people how to do that part. So
Yeah.
we're all trying to speak different languages. So what's really nice about mapping things out is that it's a universal language.
Mm-hmm.
It's flows, it's a visual way. And two, you don't need to be the expert. In fact, being an expert sometimes gets you into more trouble because you kind of think you can skip steps, or people
Mm-hmm.
assume that they're working with you, they can skip steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
What mapping kind of does is like you don't have to know how to build the perfect snapshot or a
Mm-hmm.
client account for them. You can just ask, well, what are we trying to build,
Mm-hmm.
until it's clear to you. And if it's not clear to you, you have a reason to keep asking, because the
Mm-hmm.
map doesn't explain it all. If the map explains it all, you now
Mm-hmm.
have something to work of the common language,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if
Mm-hmm.
someone asks you for something extra that wasn't at the beginning, you can say, well, where was that in the map? Right? Or if
Mm-hmm.
things change, scope creep happens, you can ask, well, where are we going to add this in? Right? It gives you
Mm-hmm.
that level.
Mm-hmm.
So I I think the smallest amount of process and complicated ways, we don't want to overcomplicate this. It's really simple. Do you know what you're trying to do? Do you
Mm-hmm.
really?
Mm-hmm.
And three, do we have a way to communicate with the person we're working with? And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have that communication, that's a sign that maybe you should pull out, or you should stay clear of, or not take that client on.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't communicate at the beginning, you're
It's
not
not
going
going
to
to get better.
communicate. It doesn't get, things end the way they begin, with lack. If it was lack of communication, at
Yeah.
the beginning, it'll be lack of communication at the end.
Yeah. Um, just for completeness, I want to talk about business model 9 interaction with business model 8 for just a second. But I think what we've been talking about for the last like 30 minutes and maybe 45 minutes has been the value of what someone who has this skill set brings to the table for the high level world as a whole, right? You're serving individual clients. And whether they're your customers, whether they're your clients, they're your sub accounts, or whether you're working in someone else's sub account as a freelancer, as a VA, as a consultant, you're part of this solution to a problem that exists within the world. Because and it's not Mike, you made a point about it's not anybody's fault. The technology that we're dealing with is changing so rapidly, and HighLevel is so improved to offer more visual. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. HighLevel is adapting so rapidly, um, and that's all. Those are good things. It just has a ripple effect. And the ripple effect is there's a whole bunch of people who are really building things really, really fast, and they haven't defined what it is they're trying to build. Um, and then they cobble together. So they built this, and then they have this new asset. So they cobble that in, and there's this new thing. So they connect it too, and soon they have this monstrosity that they don't really know how
People
it
know how to
works.
build things. People know how to build things, but not people don't know how to scale your not your product. Because
Mm,
miscall text back is a very scalable product. It's really, really simple, but you need more than miscall text back, right? Not everybody is going to be doing miscall text back, right? You need
mhm,
more than that. But when we say scale, we need to be able to scale how we produce features in
mm,
HighLevel. How
mhm,
do we how do we add on a calendar feature and a lead magnet and an onboarding process? These are all new features. We need to have a process that allows us to produce more functional working features in our offering. HighLevel is a great example of that. The value that HighLevel is that they have a way of creating, updating, and improving thousands of tools in marketing. But the agencies, we're not doing that. We're taking one feature and we're saying we're just going to do this one thing. But if you try and do more than just one thing, it all falls apart. You need to understand how to plan, build, and manage these features that you're doing. And if you don't
mhm,
understand that, it's going to fall apart because there's 1,000 different pieces from account
mhm,
management and tech
mhm,
support and the tools and the sales and all that.
mhm.
And the amount of variations of that is infinite. So if you don't have a way of dealing with that, it will all fall apart. And there's not going to be one person
Yeah.
unless one of those people actually says, no, we got to figure things out.
Mhm. And being that person that says, I can help you figure these things out, that's a very valuable team member. Yeah.
Yeah. And that can happen at any point.
Hmm.
Everyone is responsible for that. If we spend so much time waiting for someone else, someone with that makes more money than us or
Hmm.
is the
More
CEO, if you're
important.
waiting for the CEO to figure out that there's a problem, you're going to be that's a big coin flip. If
Hmm.
as a CEO, you're just hoping that the people that you outsourced or hired is going to figure out everything, that's another big coin flip.
Hmm.
What it takes is a group of people who are all willing to be vulnerable and say, I don't know.
Hmm.
I need something for my piece of the puzzle to fit with other people.
Hmm.
Because until you do that, other people aren't also going to open up and say what they need.
Yeah.
But when everyone does and everybody says, hey, I don't know how things work, let's make sure we get clear on that.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, you'll see how everyone can fit
Yeah.
together. And that's what actually happens.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the way people do that is not by adding more, but it's by just keeping it small to a solopreneur because that's one of the, but the problem is if you say as a solo person, you never learn the skill of opening up and working with
Hmm.
more complicated systems. So
You,
this is
if,
a good exercise to
yeah.
do.
Yeah. If Yes. So business model 9 is the coders. They're people who are actually they're either solving gaps within the tool shed with of high level, making things do things that are not quite finished yet as the high level version of the product, or more importantly, they're doing the integrations with the third party products to make them work. Um, and those coders, um, is of the 9 business models, I've never had any clients that are business model 9 clients. I don't have the technical skills, but I can do building automations in high level, which I call business model 8. I separate those two specifically because if you're trying to do those more complex problems, then you need additional um, tools outside high level. Okay, the point is, if you're working in business model 8 or business model 7 or business model 9, but you think of yourself, and I think this is what I've been talking to the audience, Michael, what I think, what I, from my framework perspective, what I hear you saying is when you're working as a business model 9 coder, helping people do integrations or build new capabilities that don't already exist, or when you're working as a automations expert, building out a snapshot that does a thing, if you approach it as a consultant, so in the business model 7 framework, where you're helping the customer actually understand what problem that we're trying to solve, that's where suddenly you don't get paid to do the thing. You get paid to be a you get paid as a consultant, and consultants get paid well.
I
Um,
think there's two ends of the spectrum. There's people that have a way, if you could think of almost like the consultant on one end that only works with people that they know that they're going to be successful with because they ask all the right questions, they qualify people, and they say, look, you might want to work with me, but it sounds like our goals aren't aligned, our communications aren't aligned, right? That's 100% accountability in saying, I want to work with people that I've qualified to help with. On the other side, you have people that will work for anybody. Like you think of like the coaching guru, right? They'll sell a $5,000 package to anybody who will say yes
mhm,
because they're relying on you to figure out if it's right for you and all that.
mhm.
And you know, both kind of models, like the same thing at a grocery store. There's nobody that's going to stop you from buying a banana. It's like, oh, well, I don't like bananas. Well, you kind of have to figure that, you
Yeah,
know, we're leaving that up to you, right? So,
yeah.
like saying there's nothing wrong with those kind of things, but we have to, at some point, the agency has to, people that are working for agencies or in an agency, you are an agency yourself, we have to start being accountable for understanding how is value created in a
Mhm,
GHL agency. And
mhm,
if you do not know how that is, and you're hoping
mhm.
that someone else will help the agency with that, you're going to be sadly mistaken when, or you're going to be tragically surprised
Tragically
when
surprised. That's a good way.
tragically surprised when all of a sudden, what do you know? The scope creep happens. The agency asks you for a bunch of things that you're maybe can't be responsible for, and things just end up going wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, Agencies to help a GHL agency, you don't have to become a consultant on everything, but you have to have some way of understanding how is value created with the services you do, and you have to have a way of saying no to clients that I can't actually help you. The problem is bigger. You need to
Mhm,
figure things before I can build something for you.
mm,
You need to have
mhm,
clarity on what you want built and
mm,
how it's going to happen because
mhm.
I can't help you with that. I'm
Yeah.
going to build you something really big that you're going to hate in 6 months, and you're
Mhm,
probably going to blame me for it and say, well, that guy didn't work out.
mhm. Yeah. We've been talking a lot about, from my perspective, with my existing frames of reference and my existing biases. We've been talking a lot about the next the actual answer to the question I think that I'm getting ready to ask you. But I want to ask it to you as a specific question before we wrap up. because I want the audience to hear it from your words. Okay. From my perspective, we've been talking about, so we've been talking in terms of what we do as this VA or freelancer or consultant or technical developer who is maybe solo, maybe has a small team of 2, 3, 5 people, who's supporting other high-level entities. We've been talking about how they do that and the frameworks and skills they need that most of us that the only person in the high-level world that I know that's even trying to teach it is you. You everyone else that I know that teaches, hey, you need to document your process and have a framework is all in the sense of building out a SaaS. If you're a SaaS agency, how you document, how you do the Lean Six Sigma project development for your SaaS. You're the only one that I know who's not saying who's saying to help someone else do it, as opposed to do it for yourself. Okay, is that
Well,
okay?
that's scalable. That's because scalability isn't I'm doing it for you. If you're actually serious about scale, we're talking about you need your business to continue on when I leave. Like if your business only works with me there, it's not scalable. If the business only works because this one person you hired is there, you're not scalable.
Right.
Unless you have a process that can scale your outsourcing. But most businesses aren't doing that. But so you're right on.
Yeah. And that almost circles back to the very first thing you said when you started the conversation is it's all about ability to scale. But the question I'd like you to now take it from what we're doing for the rest of the ecosphere and turn it around to, if someone is going to be this kind of business, if they're going to adopt what I call business model 8, this support entity, we're going to get to, in the next question, how they get help from you to go down that path. That's question number 2. Question number 1 are, what are the risks and benefits of deciding to do that instead of being a SaaS agency, to do that instead of being a marketing agency, to do that instead of being an affiliate and just going out and selling their high level sign up link.
I think
does the question make sense?
Yeah. You have to understand, it's just like we said, you have to understand what problem you're trying to solve for. It's a really good question too. I actually came up today. Will this actually be relevant? I think it might. I was actually thinking,
if you're okay.
No. Oh yeah. Yeah. You'll never hear me saying no to talking more. There we go. Cool. So what I came up with today was and I probably won't be able to show it, but I can reference a couple things. I even realized that in the consulting I'm doing that I need to be even more clear. It's clear in what problem I'm trying to solve is building teams and allowing agencies to scale more. But I needed to come up with a set of questions for understanding where to make sure that it's really simple to kind of show that. And some of the questions, if you're trying to help agencies, you kind of need to know, like, for instance, is it easy to update a snapshot and push it out for all of your existing clients? Do you help agencies with that part? Because that's a problem that most agencies have. Most agencies, it's not easy for them to do. Do you help them with that? Do you have a single source of truth for all of your snapshot or your custom build workflows and assets that you've developed? And is it always current? Do you help agencies keep that documentation current? Yes or no? If you're not, you're solving a different problem. Is there any information about your client work and workflows that lives in somebody's head? Because if there is, you can help solve. That's what I help solve. Right? Yeah. It's like one of the things I realized very early on is that you can't actually help an agency if things live in people's heads. because the goalposts change,
Hmm.
because there's information, you're going to make decisions based on information that's been withheld
Hmm.
accidentally or intentionally.
Hmm.
If you want to help agencies beyond just being a hourly worker, beyond just doing the one thing that you do and passing responsibility on to other people or to the agency, you got to figure out, you have to be very clear about what problems you do solve and which ones you do not.
Hmm.
And for my line of work, my job is to make sure that the problems for everyone else is really clear, because
Hmm.
I know what problems I bring. I make the problem really clear for people. That's what I do.
Hmm.
I'm not the one who's going to be building all of the workflows for you, though I have done a lot of that in the past. But
Hmm.
my job is to say, well, do those workflows work? Yes or no? Do we have a
Hmm.
process to ensure that those workflows, yes or no?
Hmm.
And and you need to know that scope of problems you solve. If you do not, you're going to have a lot of problems with helping them out. And the white label agencies that do tech support, right? They they have very defined things. The ones that are very successful have a very defined of what they do and what they don't. And if they're not in the areas where they're not clear, that's where the problems lie. Because a lot of times customers buy services and they think they're getting strategy, or they think they might be getting custom builds, or they think they're getting coaching or one-on-one stuff. But if they don't get that, but you're kind of and you're kind of saying, yeah, we kind of do that, all that, but when it comes to them holding you accountable for it, you're like, well, you kind of got to do that. If you're not clear on what problems you solve, that's where you're going to run into problems. So that
Hmm.
would be my advice to uh,
Yeah.
business model 8 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so here's to me, and I usually don't answer my own these questions because I have so many of my own walking and talking videos where I just ramble about what I think about these things. I often don't say them when I'm having an interview style conversation. But to me, one of the biggest risks of being this kind of support provider is the problem that you solve, which is they don't know they're walking in, they're just doing tasks because they're given they offer to do tasks and they're given tasks and they don't have a context for what they're doing, and so they end up making a problem for their customer that's actually worse than when they started. Michael, the way you described it is 6 months or 18 months later, people are blaming the person who built this workflow when the person who built the workflow built exactly what he was asked to build. Um,
Because it wasn't clear on what
what problem
problems
he
they
was
were
supposed to
solving.
solve.
I built you the workflow. Oh, it didn't do the thing that you didn't tell me about?
Hmm. That's
Or,
exactly how
yeah.
it becomes a problem. Yep. Um, so that to me, that's the biggest risk is you end up being a hourly worker on a contract basis instead of and you're easily discarded at that point. To me,
The, the value, I put it this way, the value of you as a worker is dependent on things outside of your control.
that's a
The
real, yeah.
more, the more, the more you take ownership
Hmm.
for the outcomes of your work, the more it's worth.
Hmm.
If you if you do not take ownership of the outcomes, you're not worth as much,
Hmm.
because but then also your success, it depends on your clients being independently successful. And if the clients don't have it all figured out, you're not having it all figured out,
Hmm.
which is why you have to be able the fastest way to grow your income as a freelancer
Hmm.
or even any business is to
Hmm.
know which clients are going to be you're going to be successful with and which ones are not, so you don't
Yeah.
waste time, effort, and you
Yeah.
can get some positive traction.
Exa Thank you, because that's a perfect segue to what I think is the greatest benefit of this particular business model. And that is your audience is really easy to find. Finding agencies who are high-level agencies isn't hard to do. And if you're a um, automations expert and you work in Keep, then a high level agency isn't going to need your help. But if you work in high level and you search for agents, if you go find people who are hanging out in the high level Facebook group or in one of the high level communities on Colab or the official job network, that's your target audience. And if that's a skill set you're bringing to the table, it's easy to find those agencies who are using that set of tools that you can offer your services to.
I might
You're
push back a little bit, and this might
okay.
be pedantic.
Okay.
They're easier to, they'll be easier to sell to, but they're going to be harder to find. It's easier to find people to hire you when you don't have when you say you can do everything for everyone. There's easy to people. If
Mm-hmm.
someone says, "Hey, can you help me with this?" and you say yes without any context,
Mm-hmm.
then
But
it's easy to find those people, but it's harder to please. It gets a little harder to find those people when you say, "This is who I help. This is
mm-hmm.
how I help you,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the outcomes I produce. Do you
Okay.
want that or no?" But when you find someone who is in your market and you align things,
Yeah.
it people get it's a lot more attractive. It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
easier to
Mm-hmm.
sell those people, but it takes a little upfront harder to find because you
Mm-hmm.
have to say no.
Yeah. Okay. Which ties to the risk that you just talked about that risk. The risk
Mm-hmm.
of just taking every job just because it's potentially cash, um, but isn't aligned. You did already address that. So
Gotcha.
right. And what I'm not talking about in terms of is because what we're not having today is a class on marketing. So how you make that approach is a different conversation than today's conversation. It's a conversation that we have in GHL Business Launch, but it is not today's conversation. Because you can spam me and I'll just argue with you all day long and you're never going to get hired by me. Or you can actually start a relationship with me and we can have a conversation about how we work in collaboration to move forward to help for both of us to achieve our goals helping someone else, right? So that's a marketing kind of question about how you market this business model A question. Um, and so yes, within the market segment, within the entirety of the high level universe, finding the people that are the right people to work with that's another step in the process. But the fact that they are a high level agency and you happen to have skills building, um, uh, I'm going to go back to the workflows because that's the centerpiece. That's the workflows is what makes the magic of high level work. Otherwise, without the workflow, now we're going to be on one of my soapboxes. Without the workflow, without the automations, the social planner and the email builder and the website builder are just and the reputation management module are just I mean they're not any better than any of the other ones that are on the market. The automations that tie them together and make the data all produce results, that's the magic that Sean Clark and Varun have created. All right. I want to ask. Yeah, we're at an hour and 10 minutes. And I want to ask Michael, I want to ask you the the $64,000 question. Um, so we've talked about what a business model a business would be doing and the value they bring to their clients, whether it's an end user of high level or it's an agency who's serving other end users of high level. Um, and how they position their service to not just be a task doer, but a value adder to their client. The question to you, the question for you to the audience is when they realize that they've been taking $5 an hour tasks, but they have more capacity than that, and they're ready to be a add more value to their client. what question do they ask you that lets you map a path for them to develop their potential and reach that objective. And you described it as doubling their income.
Just saying, what question do I ask? Like saying, like the freelancer?
Yeah, what question does Micheal ask the freelancer? What should the freelancer, the VA, somebody who realizes they have the technical skills to be a business model agency and they don't want to be a creative agency. They suddenly realize this is where the path I want to follow. This thing that you and I have been talking about, how we create value, instead of running ads for people.
So the question is very simple.
Yeah.
Do you know what creates value in a high-level agency?
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not know that answer and you can't consistently apply it, then you need to stay a worker. You need to stay a specialist. You need to stay that. You cannot. Every white label agency runs into this conundrum of how much do we help them, and you need to know what creates value in agencies at scale. And if you don't, you can create an offer that doesn't help anybody. That it looks like it'll work, but if it doesn't, if you don't know what the conditions are to make your offer work, because you don't understand how the greater high level agency works in a more in-depth way, it'll look like a lot of potential value that you're providing. But if the agency that's getting your services can't realize it, like white label support, you can get a whole tech team 24/7 and, like unlimited tech support for your thing. That's potentially very valuable. But how does an agency actually turn that potential value into money hitting their bank? You need to know what those conditions are. So if you don't know how a high-level agency works and what those conditions are that creates value for a white label unlimited thing, you're going to be churning a lot. You're going to be playing the churn and burn game. That works for whether you're in a documentation or consulting, or doesn't matter how you help agencies. You need to know how value is created in high level. And if you don't know that, that's cool. Do your thing and make sure that you still have those questions so that you have like some, a way to filter people. But if you want to help agencies on a more flexible basis or any on larger capacity, you have to know that.
So let me reframe it then. If someone said, I think I'm pretty good with workflows. I think I'm pretty good with calendars. I know how to make an appointment funnel work. But I know that I should know what Micheal's talking about, but I don't.
So
is that a fair question?
The difference between someone who's good at building workflows and someone that can help an agency out all comes down to knowing the problem that you're trying to solve.
And okay,
is the problem that agencies are running into that they don't have someone to build workflows? That's not the problem. What they have a problem is they don't understand which workflows and how to build them in a way that allows them to update them. And they don't know how the account manager is going to connect in with that. And how does the support team fill in? And what do we do 6 months when we want to add new features, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. The problem is that is bigger than, and it's a more specific thing than just building workflows. Right. So if you want to go on from just being someone who does workflows to somebody who helps agencies out in a more this kind of a capacity, you need to have a deeper understanding of how your work impacts the agency's
Hmm.
business,
Yeah.
and you need to take accountability for it.
Yeah.
And because if you're going to be as an employee, that's the different. The employee side is
Hmm.
like the boss figures it out.
Hmm.
If you're trying to say, well, I'm not going to be just a worker thing, I'm going to be someone who has a solution.
Hmm.
Well, if you do solutions, you need to know what problems those solutions are
Yeah.
for. And that's the difference.
Yeah. I agree. Um, I'm trying to ask a leading question, and maybe
Oh,
I'm
no, just
missing
say it.
maybe I'm
Just say
missing
it
that
bluntly,
part.
man.
But so because there's a difference we're agreeing that there's a difference between someone who builds the form and the funnel page that the form lives on and the calendar and the workflow that ties them all together, and someone who designs the flow of the snapshot, right? When someone realizes, and then there's, why does this snapshot, what problem does this snap? And then there's the question of that's the agency question. What problem does this snapshot solve, right? When someone realizes, so the question, when someone realizes they need that set of knowledge that Micheal has, how do they get a hold of you? How do they
Oh,
get
yeah, you're
from
saying what? Oh, there. Just say it. There. Just say it bluntly, man.
how do they get
Super
what
simple.
you
So there's
know?
going to be two. So as I said, I'm going to be releasing the snapshot playbook in collaboration with HighLevel. It's going to be right in your apps, but that might be weeks or months away. What you can get right now is I have a free course for teaching agencies, freelancers, the the things that everyone needs to know when working in HighLevel. It's a very simple way. We've been talking very complex and high level
Mm-hmm.
high level stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
I put into this training all of the basic building blocks that you can do with a simple spreadsheet, a simple flow chart thing. And it is basically to go through all the things that have to be done in order to make a snapshot or a basic build successful.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an agency, put your whole team through it. If you're a freelancer, take the skills here, implement them, and double what you charge. I've seen it happen. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna and it keeps happening. And
Mm-hmm.
you can get to that at agencyunbound.com. And you can go there into the free training. You can also go to agencyunbound.com/free training. It'll all be there. And there's a community we have. You can get yourself documentation tools. And for those that are already making money and are or agencies that want to get their team more hands-on training, I have a monthly membership where I have the full SOPs, training documents, advanced documentation tools, as well as we have meetups for upscaling and just keeping up to date with the latest that HighLevel's doing. And of course, I always do one-on-ones with select agencies as well for implementing everything we're talking about. If you want that implemented in your team, that's what we can do. But agencyunbound.com.
Agencyunbound.com. Awesome. Thank you. So I put that in the chat for the GHL Business Launch group. Um, so for so that's how they get a hold of you. If someone doesn't have a hmm, yeah, that should be good enough for today's purposes. I was going no, so I'm going to put this plug in for the GHL Business Launch World just for a quick, and I haven't done this on most of these interview style trainings, but I'm going to circle around to, it's almost a year now since when we started off making this offer, and we don't actually make a big deal about it, even monthly. So so it's been a while since I mentioned it. Um, but we have a training we call the OmniHub Challenge. And I'll put that chat in I'll put that in the chat as well once I'm done talking. Um, and in the video that describes what we're doing on, so first of all, we're not running it as a 90-day challenge anymore. But the materials is all theirs. Someone could go through the materials on their own timeline at this point instead of running it as a 90-day challenge. But included in there is, and if you're trying to implement all this stuff in HighLevel and you don't actually have a HighLevel agency subscription, how do you practice building a workflow? How do you practice building all these things that Michael's talking about? And so what we do have is we offer um, let's just say a very economical way to get access to HighLevel, but you have to actually contact me and have a conversation with me in order to go there. All right. So thank you, Michael, for taking an hour and a half of your time today, um, and actually including the time before we went live when we were trying to troubleshoot how to get Zoom to talk to Facebook. It's probably closer to an hour and 45 minutes already. So thank you very much for your time. Um,
It was a pleasure there, Keith. I had a great time. Thank you for
all
having me.
all right, awesome. Next week, we will talk with Aaron Oliver about the business model 9, the technical, like the actual code level, um, making HighLevel do things that HighLevel doesn't do natively. And then so we've got a thank you from Triprit to both of us. So thank you very much. We appreciate you. We appreciate you hanging with us the whole time. That's been very kind of you. And yes, your questions have been helpful in making sure that I stay relevant to you all, the audience, instead of just being on my own agenda. After we talk with Aaron next week, then I'll do a little bit of conclusion, and then we'll see what happens in October for this Monday training session. Right now, I'm still planning to continue it. Devin and I are talking about what it will look like come October.
Awesome. You take care there, Keith. It was great talking with you.
All right, and you too.